Welcome to this edition of the Hoosier Basketball Experience. Last time, we spent time with number 34 from Indiana University, Steve Green. We heard a lot about Silver Creek in his high school days. Now we're going to take off into the world of IU basketball, Coach Knight, and both the NBA and the ABA. You're going to enjoy it with Steve Green when we come back.
The Hoosier Basketball Trivia Question, sponsored by Christy, Farrow, Lee, and Bell. Serious injury isn't what we do, it's all we do. Today's question: what Indiana high school player ended his career as the all-time leading scorer in the ABA? The answer after the break. Now our trivia question answered, sponsored by Christy, Farrow, Lee, and Bell. Serious injury isn't what we do, it's all we do. Today's question: what Indiana high school player ended his career as the all-time leading scorer in the ABA? The answer: Louis Dampier.
Welcome back to the Hoosier Basketball Experience. Greeno, let's talk about getting recruited at Indiana University. Talk a little bit about your first experience with Coach Knight and the staff and how that all came to be.
Sure. I think I can remember that because that was a unique time because this is 1971. Coach Knight doesn't become the IU coach until April 1st, I think, or thereabouts in 71. And in those days, we didn't sign early.
Sure.
This was not Damon Bailey territory.
Eighth graders were not being recruited.
We're not, not at all.
In fact, it's even after your senior season, right?
Oh, absolutely, when you start taking your trips.
Yeah.
And nobody that I knew, and Mike Flynn, we were always being wined and dined at the same places. We'd see each other, and he'd be with, Tennessee, I'd be with Auburn, and, we'd wave, and then the next night I'd be Tennessee, that kind of thing. So it was kind of loosey-goosey like that, but everybody wanted to wait to the last minute. So we were all available, basically. And Coach Knight comes in and starts at the northern part of the state, as he tells me the story. And he just touched base with everybody at that time. A guy named John Garrett, who went to Purdue and was an All-American, Peru, Indiana. So he's down through Indianapolis. And the last two people he talked to in the state of Indiana were Mike Flynn and Steve Green. Fortunately for me,
Flynn goes.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, Mikey goes that way. And but guess what? Prior to Coach Knight being hired, my final two were UK and Vanderbilt. Okay. I was going SEC. Because I was from Southern Indiana, I watched SEC basketball. We didn't have ESPN back then, so I'm watching Pistol Pete, I'm watching Johnny Newman. I'm saying, that's where I belong because I don't play defense and I shoot all the time. So that's a great place for me. And I end up with the greatest defensive coach of all time. How about that? But anyway, but my dad gets me out of study hall and says, I want you to meet the new coach of IU. And he says, I want you to listen to him.
Did he have a relationship with Coach before that?
It was instant.
Sure.
I think they bonded with Steve is such a lazy player. Gosh, Coach Bob Knight, if you can get anything out of him more than I can, my hat off to you. So there was some of that. But nonetheless, I in my dad's coach's office at Silver Creek, he laid out. Everybody thinks, this is just the way you remember it. He laid out a 4-year program that by the time you're a senior, Steve, I want to be in a position to win a national championship.
And no guarantees about playing time.
No, not at all. Here's my philosophy. But he did talk about forwards and centers shoot. And I go, all right, now we're getting there. So anyway, and then I visited IU. On Little Five weekend.
Good weekend to go.
I was going at the Sigma Nu House with Frank Wilson. So
good weekend to go.
I said, I'm ready. I'm in.
So freshman year is the last year that freshmen were not eligible.
Right.
What did you do for a freshman basketball schedule?
We had 12 games.
Okay.
I remember we went 8-4. And, everybody had, Indiana State, UK, U of L, that kind of thing. But, yeah, we practiced every day with the varsity.
Okay.
So when the varsity was when Coach Knight and the guys took off for Big Ten games, then we would practice ourselves. And I remember Jordy Hull's granddad was my freshman coach, right? And Allfeld will tell the same things. John Campster will say the same thing. We all heard the same thing. Coach Hulls comes to us and says, listen, guys, thinking of giving you a day off. How many days in a row have you been? And in unison, 45.
Everybody knew.
Gosh,
Everybody
because
knew.
we always practice on their days off, right? We never had a day off. So anyway, that was freshman year, and we played. We just knew. Looking back now, I know Coach Knight, and I know had we been eligible, we were his boys, right?
Yeah,
we would have
sure.
gotten some time because they were struggling in January that year. They didn't win a game in January, and we of course we would sit back and watch these games as freshmen, and we'd know, come on guys, we were cheering, come on, we got to win because I don't want to practice that hard
But
tomorrow.
it also gave you a year to get used to Coach's style. Right?
I loved it. I mean, Coach's style to academics. I don't know what I would have done, and I needed a year of maturity. I came in at 195. I show up the next year not doing anything, and I'm 210, 215, you know. And I wasn't ready. As a freshman, I couldn't have played.
So as a sophomore, when you did have eligibility, the freshmen that came in behind you also had eligibility.
Right.
So this is a huge class.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about those freshmen that came in.
Oh yeah, they're not too bad. Quinn Buckner, was one of the guys. Scotty May,
Pretty good.
Bobby Wilkerson,
Not bad.
Not a bad guy that came in. Unfortunately, those two guys weren't eligible. There was a Prop 48 thing. It was two of the brightest guys I know, but it was back then it was all screwed up. So they sat. Jimmy Cruz was another freshman guard that came in. Got to play. Yeah, it was Cruzy and Quinn were our starting guards to go to the Final Four. I mean, you had two freshman guards, and then Steve Downing and John Ritter were the two seniors, and I was a sophomore. So we were kind of, the three of us knew we were coming back.
Talk about going to the Final Four as a sophomore, first year of eligibility.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, you think back, go, hey, we'll do this some more, and we almost did, but we didn't. But going down to the Mid-East Regional was the most fun I think I've ever had because we were underdogs to a Marquette team with Al McGuire and the guys. I mean, Maurice Lucas and all the guys that you look them up. And Coach and they had a press that was scary, and I was scared to death until Coach, our practice session said, "Here's how we're going to break it." And I go, "Oh, okay." The coach figures this out. We're going to put Green at the midline. And then I went, no, not me. I'm not going to. But it was. He said, "No, here's what we're going to do." And then you're going to give it to Buckner, and then. And it worked. It worked beautifully. And we beat Marquette, and then 2 nights later we have to play UK again.
Yeah.
We'd beaten them in Bloomington earlier that year, so to beat a team twice, and they were rolling, and they were favored, and we beat them, and that was still one of the greatest feelings that we've all had. And there's a great picture that, of jumping off the bench, Coach Knight, and we did it. We're going to the Final Four because, believe it or not, folks, in those days you had to get to the Final Four to be on national TV.
Right. The whole thing wasn't televised.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I don't know about anybody else, but I rehearsed running out for the starting lineup, and I told my government teacher, Mr. Booker, I said, "I'm going to say hello to you like Carol." And I did it. No wonder I scored 2 points, and Coach yanked me. I was, I was so intimidated.
So the next year, we won't talk about the CCA tournament year.
No.
We talked about that with Aber a little bit when he was here. But you're the leading scorer that year, you're the leading scorer the next year, and the next year, 74-75, you're a captain of that team. You're averaging 16.67 points a game. You go through the entire season undefeated. Talk about that experience.
Well, the start of that year, we all got together at center court without the coaches. And, and you've been there, you've seen that too. Look, it's up to us. Excuse me, folks. You know how crazy that guy is when we lose. Do we all agree?
That's stipulation.
We have the ability to win every game, so let's win every game. Let's don't go through that. It was almost
That's a good strategy.
I know, it was a good strategy. We're going to avoid pain over here if we do. But we also had a confidence that, from playing, because remember the year before, even though there was the CCA tournament, we didn't have any seniors that year. So for 2 years in a row, we had the same team. Only we added to it. And so we knew we were ready, and we just had to take care of it. But second game of the year, we're at Kansas. It's an overtime game.
Yeah.
Thank God Scotty had, he just took over in the overtime period. But we were that close in the second game. But then from that point on, it was like, whoop. Don't ever, the game's got to be over with, the first 5 minutes of the second half. Coaches say first 5 minutes, the first half, first 5. we wanted to be done. I don't know about anybody else. I wanted to be ready to go out to eat, by 10 minutes to go in the game.
Scotty May breaks his arm.
Yep.
You lose to Kentucky, I think 92-90. Is there any doubt in your mind that if Scotty had been healthy, we win that national championship?
Oh, there's no doubt, because the winner of that game goes right to the finals, because Syracuse squeezes in, and then you play UCLA, and I guarantee you we would have beat. I guarantee you, especially if it was Coach Wood's last game.
Yeah.
Coach Knight would have got this, but okay. But anyway, it didn't happen.
We've talked about life at IU, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little more about your relationship with Coach Knight, and then get into the NBA and ABA experience that Steve Green had. He played in both leagues, was drafted by both leagues, and we've got some interesting tidbits that I'm sure you didn't know before tuning in to the Hoosier basketball experience. And we'll talk about those things when we come back after these messages. Welcome back to the Hoosier basketball experience. Greeno, I want to talk a little bit about our relationship with Coach Knight, but before we get there, myself excluded, there have been so many basketball players that played under Coach Knight that have seen professional success after basketball and professional success in the leagues. Something has to explain that tie between all those people. Have you thought about what that might be?
Yeah, and through the years, I certainly have. And we hear kind of the cliche things, discipline, this. But it was on steroids, right? I mean, there was a way, and we knew who the boss was, and we knew what we had to do to please him and to achieve success. However, there was a certain part of us, I think, and I'll just speak for myself, that I didn't realize how hard I could work. And we all, and he knew that you guys think you've worked hard, but we're going to work hard and we're going to achieve. But that was on the on the playing field, on the court. But he asked the same thing of us off the court. I used to get letters from him. I don't know if he kept it up. In the summertime.
Absolutely. Here's what you need to work on.
Yep. Boom, 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 boom.
And you better be working on
right. But he would also say, congratulations on 3.3 GPA.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there was something about that you've got to be prepared beyond this. And he wasn't a big fan of the professional leagues anyway. He kind of wanted to, have a great collegiate career and then go on and do something worthwhile, not play basketball, But I think there was something about, gosh, if I could do that, I didn't even know I could do it until he brought it up. Then what am I capable of? And I think we all are saying, I think I can work a little harder. I think I can. So
folks might not know, but have probably surmised, Coach has been so good to so many of us, but there has been over time a relatively small circle of players that he's remained close with, and I know that you're one of those. And to be able to form that relationship post-basketball, what has that meant to you?
It's another one of those things that we've always heard is it's more special as time goes on. And it was special then, but I was one of those knuckleheads that for 5 years after I graduated, I thought, well, the reason I'm good at basketball is because of me, right? Then you get out and you go, no, it had nothing, not very little to do with me. But no, I was fortunate enough to stay close with him. And part of it was my father and Coach Knight hit it off because Coach didn't want another yes man around him.
Sure.
And my dad was sign me up because that's not the way I learned. So those two had a special relationship. In fact, Coach was at my wedding, and he looked at me and he goes, "This is the last one of these I'm coming to. I want you to know that." But he was there, and all the pictures of
your wedding or him
of him with my dad. It's nothing to me. So
your dad's special day.
My pecking order. And when my dad I would go down to visit Coach Knight for practice, and maybe watch you guys practice or something. Dad and Coach arm in arm out, and I'm trailing behind, saying, "Hey, Coach, hey,
you're a player." Yeah.
But special. And then I must tell you that when things ended in 2000, Coach was let go on, I think it was that weekend, Sunday or whatever. My dad passed away and had his showing, like the Thursday after, and Coach Knight showed up.
Wow. And there's so many stories like
exactly.
There's so many stories like that people don't know.
He shows up. I don't know. It was his first time out in public, really. And he's with Bob Hamill, sits in the front row, right by my brothers and me. Writes about it in his book. Then later on, that the eulogies that my brother and I gave, and afterwards spoke to my mother and the rest of us, and told stories and I told my brother, I said, if I'm ever disloyal to that guy, you have permission to kick me. Okay? So when he went to Texas Tech, I started going down there, and I was called a traitor, by some, but it was no, that's the guy.
My coach.
That's my coach.
Yeah.
My dad was my coach. Those guys are pretty important to me.
Yeah. So, 1975 draft. Mm-hmm. Talk about being drafted in both leagues, by which teams, what numbers, and how you decided where to go.
So the NBA draft was first, but the ABA still existed. So in those days, the ABA just kind of sat back and said, okay, who's left? And who's going where? But the ABA at that time was after the biggest names, David Thompson.
Yeah.
And so David signs with, he gets drafted by Denver. I get drafted by Salt Lake City. About a week later after the NBA draft I'm kind of hearing, hey, I got drafted by Chicago in the NBA, and then Utah in the ABA. The Utah general manager, Bill Orwig Jr., whose father was athletic director, and Bill Orwig Jr. did IU basketball games with Chuck Marlowe. So anyway, there was some connection there, but Moses Malone, I think I was telling you earlier, Moses played for Utah, so they just needed a shooting forward, and I signed me up. So so that all happened there, but it was still, there was a bidding. Thank goodness for me, there's still a little bit of a bidding where you could play one against the other, the league. So it ended up, I had a better deal overall. Plus, they did the smart thing. They flew Lana and me. At that time, I got married right before that. So Lana and I flew out to Salt Lake City, and she was
fell in love with that.
I know. So I think Bill Orwig said, "Well, we just took about $100,000 off the table because we're getting this guy anyway."
They had an announcer in Utah that some people might know.
Well, after Utah folded, I go to St. Louis.
That's why.
So St. Louis.
That's right. That's right.
The Spirits of St. Louis. And talk about a loaded team. The head coach is Rod Thorne, who's now an NBA exec of some renown. But we couldn't win games. But we did have a great announcer. Bob Costas was in his second year out of Syracuse. You think he looks young now? I mean, as a real 22-year-old, he was a little baby, and we just played around with him.
And St. Louis does a deal when the ABA folds, and they just take a little tiny percentage of NBA revenue for the rest of their lives. Pretty good deal.
Ozzie and Danny Silman. Yeah, I saw them about one of the brothers, Danny, a couple of years ago.
It's still
because Kentucky took $1 million.
Yeah,
John Y. Brown was just be done. I forget the other team.
Squires, maybe.
And St. Louis just
take a percentage.
And the guy, they tell the story.
On a napkin.
He just rolled on it and said, "We'll just take that percentage of all future." Well, of course, all the money. The story. But they finally, just recently, they had to say, "Hey, wait a minute, nobody knew digital." So and Ozzie and Danny are going,
That's part of our deal.
That's part of our deal in perpetuity. So they finally did something. But that was a big story.
You then go on with the Pacers?
Because then the ABA folds after my rookie year.
Yep.
And they have a dispersal draft.
Okay.
And then so Slick and Nancy Leonard, they were dear, kind of friends because through Midberger at IU, Mid took care of Bob Leonard and Nancy when they were down there. So through them, that's how I used to go to Pacer games, because I just called Mid, and Mid said,
"Get tickets.
If you'll drive me up, I'll get you in first row seats." I go,
great.
"Let's go." And we'd take Nancy Knight, Coach Knight's first wife, up there too. And we'd go up, and all fell in, and I look back on it now, oh my gosh, we had the coach's wife in our car. What are we doing? So anyway, but got to know Slick and all. But so it was kind of a natural thing. But I could have, it could have, would have, should have. My coach at Utah, Tom Nasaki, went to Houston. And they said, "No, you want to come down here." And I talked to Coach Knight. I was just like, "No, I'm an Indiana boy. I'm going to go with the Pacers. If it works out, it's going to be great." Well, then Tom says, "Okay." And a year later, he gets Moses down there, and the rest is like, okay. And I didn't, pan out too well with the Pacers, but that's how I got here.
Well, we could talk forever about Slick, but you got a 30-second Slick story?
Not for
Not for publication.
Not for publication, but Slicko was just he was the best. He's a Terre Haute boy,
Yeah.
So our training camps, the NBA would have training camps of 1 week, 10 days. LA would go to Hawaii. We went to Terre Haute and stayed a month of training camp because Slick was in his hometown, and that was the best thing. He said, "No, we have a long training camp here, so I can hang out."
Best players at the time for the Pacers.
Oh gosh, we had Billy Knight, who was fantastic. Darnell was on the team there. Lenny Elmore, my best friend with the Pacers, was great at that time. Don Boozy, Billy Keller had just retired, so yeah, those were our guys. And of course, we had a lot of the ABA guys came over. Dr. J was the the best guy.
The draw.
Yeah, and I remember the first time I played against him, and I held him to 33 or something like that. And the guys on my team were like, "Great job, bud." And I go, "Yeah, I can do that."
Yeah, well, those are the kind of stories you get on the Hoosier Basketball Experience. We'll see you back after these messages. Greeno, thanks so much for joining us. Tell the folks how they can get a hold of Aurora if they want to be a patient of yours.
Sure. Just give us a call at 317-482-7900. Aurora, A-R-O-R-A, sleep.com. You can make appointments online now. It's all fancy, for me. That's one of the things Brian, and by the way, Brian and I will be there. Yes, we do talk IU basketball. We talk all kinds of basketball. So we have many Purdue fans that come in. So don't worry about that.
Thanks for joining us on the Hoosier Basketball Experience.